What is going on, guys? Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys will enjoy this episode 21 of Thoughtful Banter featuring our wonderful guest, Laila Tauqeer. And before we get started real quick, I just, like always, got to shout out the patrons. So quick shout out to Ali, Muhammad, Jordan, Justin, Latifa, and T-Jam.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you guys so much for supporting the podcast. We appreciate everything.
Yo, what up? So we have another episode with a guest. We've been promising you guys a guest for a hot minute, and we've been following through. But thankfully, we got saved by our esteemed guest of today's episode, Laila Tauqeer. She is a graduate of the Great Harvard University and an avid member of her Muslim community. She is the founder and mastermind behind the first ever all-Shia Muslim conference held called Marifa, which was a huge success. It was something that was really never done before. The first time it happened was last year, I believe. And actually, we're having another one in 2022. Inshallah, Laila can give us more information about that. All that to say, that's just obviously super cool. So you should definitely be tuning into this episode and paying way more attention when it's just me and Hussein giving our opinions about random stuff. So without any further ado, please make sure to give this episode some great love and welcome our esteemed guest, Laila Tauqeer.
Woo!
Pretend as an audience.
Exactly.
Sound like
That was
Laila?
such a that was such a cute intro. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Alhamdulillah.
Vibes always.
We just vibing. Whatever Hussein just said. Vibes always. So wait, Marifa, I said last year, but COVID, I know, will be changing my timeline of things. The first
was 19.
It was 2019.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, not last year. Okay. 2019. I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to create Marifa?
Okay. I love that this is like a conversation between young people because I think you guys would understand this perfectly. But the inspiration behind this was I had just really started getting into religious programming. And was looking into a lot of like organizations that existed in America. And I felt like, especially within the Shia community, there wasn't anything that was going beyond identity for students, for young people. Like everything just kind of got stuck at like, I'm Shia and I have a marginalized identity. But like, so like, then what comes after that? And I was like searching for those answers for myself. And I remember I had attended this other thing. This was a program for the youth. And the program ended up being about like, this is halal and this is haram. Like there wasn't any thoughtful discussion or anything that, like, those are questions I can Google, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I just wanted something more. So that's where Marifa came from. I was like, what if we bring together young Shia people from the country and we really delve into Shia traditions of spirituality and knowledge. And as you all know, like we have 12 imams and like a prophet and so many other things to pull from. I just felt like we weren't doing justice to our youth. Like we were just not pulling into our own traditions of spirituality and knowledge enough. So wanted to do that, like wanted to create a space just for young people for that. Got in touch with some of my friends. This was back in 2019 when I was in DC for a summer. So weird that like it started from there and now we're back there for 2022. But got in touch with some of my friends. I was like, this is kind of what I'm thinking about. They were on board. And that's where the idea kind of took off. And it took a lot. Like the first time we sat down, if you had looked at our schedule, you would have been like, what's different about this? Like it's exactly like any other conference that you could go to that currently exists. So it took months and months of questioning ourselves to be like, what are questions that we are asking as young people right now in America? And how can this conference answer them?
Okay. So I remember the theme, like when I first saw Marifa, what initially like attracted me, I guess, was the theme. So I guess I just want to ask, how much thought do you guys, like, how important is your theme for like structuring your conference as a whole?
Oh my God, thank you so much for asking that. Okay, that's my favorite part of the conference. And it actually, like for us, the emphasis is always on the content. So even so like this year, our theme is heart and revival. It took us about 3 months to come up with that. And I remember the first time around, I believe the theme was self-discovery and imagination.
Yeah.
Again, it was the same thing. It's like the theme aside, it's just even coming up with a title that captures the theme, like matters a lot to all of us. So that theme, self-discovery and imagination, what was so important about having that in the first year was the word imagination. It was really like we wanted to push ourselves to imagine something different, imagine something unique and something that was needed in the community. And we wanted that same thing for students too, for students to come to a conference, discover something beyond just identity, and then imagine their like life experience with religion at every step of the way, but not something as a burden, if that makes sense.
I mean, absolutely. I wanted to ask, well, I mean, Hussein and I both are involved like with our communities as well. And I don't know, like in my experience, just even planning something as small as a hangout, something as small as a Friday youth circle, which, you know, we have that as some local programming here. Like, you know, people don't show up, people flake, or people complain about programming. I mean, and this is just like that's only an example of something that's like super small that maybe maximum 25 people would attend. I can't imagine the hurdles you would run into, you have probably run into, or maybe inshallah you haven't ran into. But tell me, like, I mean, it sounds like make it make sense to me, because I'm like, mashallah, like the idea is good, but I think, and not to put you down, but we know other people have also had the idea, right? So like, I want to know, how were you able to make the idea happen? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because the idea is amazing, you know, but I know there's so many troubles when it comes to getting programs really started and making them happen.
Yeah, no. So when I look back at the first conference now, we were literally just having a meeting the other day, and I was like, wow, like if I were to start this conference now, I would have given up. I'd be like, this is impossible. We're not doing this. Like, I just don't have that same energy. But alhamdulillah, like I am still shocked sometimes when I think about how the community stepped up. Like, it was a community funded conference.
Wow.
The community stepped up in so many ways. Like, anyone we reached out to, any center, any person, like they were willing to support. And then you know, like we had great scholars and academics as advisors who were willing to guide us. Like, I think that was the kindest thing anyone could have given us as we were planning this conference, because I feel like sometimes, like, if you mess up, everyone just turns against you. Here, they were like willing to just sit down with us and guide us through our mistakes, and guide us through what we wanted in our heads too. So it was, you know, like the community funded support, the scholar support, and then the folks that came to the conference, like you all, the support that you gave us was actually crazy. Like, we were not expecting that reception. I even still remember, because I think it was like the early ticket deadline was, I want to say sometime in January. And we were freaking out 2 days before. We were like, no one is buying tickets. Like, what is happening here? And then, like, as is, you know, like Muslim fashion, like tickets sell out. Tickets sell out the day of the deadline. And then we're having the other problem of like, what do we do with this wait list? So alhamdulillah, like I really do believe that God, I mean, God has a hand in everything, but then there's just something where you're like, yeah, like God had a hand in this. Really, like support from every way. And I do want to give credit to the incredible team I worked with. Like, honestly, I don't think I've ever worked with like people who were like more competent and more flexible. Like, I think the biggest thing with this was that all of us were willing to unlearn the things that we already knew about organizing and religion, and really just put ourselves out there. So it was a combination of everything. Like this was really like such a communal effort.
Mashallah. Mashallah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my question would be along the lines of like, how are you guys measuring your success? I think that's for any organization, obviously, like that's an important question. And especially for the last two conferences you guys have had. As far as like execution of them, do you think you guys have met your like metric?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I feel like there's so many ways to go about this, as you said already. And we're still trying to figure that out. We've had two conferences. We're going into our third one. Mm-hmm. Someone had told us the other day that maybe it's time to up the attendee
limit.
Limit. Yeah, right. Like maybe increase that, because the first year was like, I think 275. The second year, even though it was online, we kept it at that because we didn't have capacity. Mm-hmm. And this year we're still thinking that. We're like honestly thinking 250 to 275 because we just like, it's COVID, we don't have the capacity. So that's one way to measure it, right? Like do you
how many people come?
How many people come? And I think we're just not there yet. Like that's not a way for us to measure the success. We're still very much at like, can we deliver a good conference for the 250 people that come? Like, can they, so like some questions that we ask ourselves, and we're still figuring out how to measure those. So these are just questions right now. Questions are like, like, were we able to do justice to the content? So that's like more sort of a reflection on the team. Did we put enough time to make sure that this was a content centric conference?
Yeah.
And then also another thing aside from the attendees is just the word Marifa itself, right? It means like knowing self and knowing God. So another thing that we measure this is that like after the conference, like I would ideally love to sit down with the team and talk about the learnings that we had, because there's no point in planning a whole conference if we're not, like say like the conference about heart and revival, right? So like the team is getting readings from me, or like we just have planning sessions where we're just talking about the content ourselves. Because if we don't come having learned the things that we're asking questions about in our meetings and that we want in our panels, no point in like bringing 250 people together. So that's where kind of we're at. We're like very much trying to figure out how to measure the success of this conference, and we want to do it content wise. Like we don't want to do it based off of attendees. We just don't know how to do that yet. Like, is that like, maybe you guys can give suggestions, maybe your viewers can give suggestions. Maybe that's something that we post to our attendees as they come, to be like what does that require? Is it a Google form? Is it like, like just seeing what helps out, or maybe we see the changes in a couple of years. I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, like, I don't think we can give it much help. We're kind of struggling with the same thing as far as like balancing how impactful we want to be versus like how widespread we want our stuff to be as well.
It's difficult to draw that line. I will say though that I mean, again, I don't know anything, especially as like what we do on a community service level is like way smaller than Marifa, and it's also like usually a younger,
I think give yourself credit. Please give yourself more credit.
I mean, if I either do this or I become arrogant, so you want this, trust me.
Okay.
I will say though that like I do think that it's better to gauge content, because we do see other things happening, like when communities get really focused on like how many people attend, and if people are saying that like it was really fun and whatever, then we just become obsessed with like making cool events. And if you always focus on the content, then at least the people who are there for that content are the people you want there. And like I'll say something about Marifa, and this is I'm not saying this to reflect negatively upon you, but like every conference, like I remember myself, like I was like in the lecture hall listening to lecture because the speaker panel list was packed. It was really really good. Like everyone was fire.
Yeah, even the people I didn't know. So like obviously there were like certain scholars that I knew that I was like, okay, I know they're good and I want to come. But even the people that I didn't know, they were like dropping it.
It was really good. And then like, for example, I'll leave the lecture hall because I'm like, I need to use the bathroom or something, and I just see like 70, 80 people outside the lecture hall playing pool and chatting it up, and I'm like, what? I'm thinking, what the heck are you guys doing? Get in this lecture hall. So it's like I have to say, it's like that's not something you can necessarily control. Like people, even if you market it as much as you can to let people know, like, hey, this is for people who are like trying to increase their Marifa, for example. Other people are just like more social and they're just there to vibe. It's like that's that's okay. Maybe this is still beneficial to them. So I would say focusing on the content is a better metric than focusing on how many people attend, for sure.
No, that's really, really helpful. And I think we're also trying to see how we get those 70 people to come inside the lecture hall too. Like I think a lot of the feedback we got at the first conference was more interactive things. So we are trying to incorporate that into this one where like the content is still there. Like content is still there, but like let's do things with it.
People, I mean, no, like do that. I hope that works. But I'm just saying, like, people, I feel like in programming, there's always these people who will make a complaint and have a suggestion to make, and they don't know what they want, and whenever you do implement whatever they say, they still will be doing the same thing. Like you just, I mean, make it interactive, but don't put all your energy into it and be like, why aren't you guys participate? It's because they don't want to. Like that's why.
Not necessarily because it's not interactive. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, that's really good to know.
Yeah, I think I guess I kind of have like a difficult question, but like I'm not trying to be antagonistic in asking this, but I think just especially okay, I'm gonna say like my experience from the first day I walked into Marifa. Well, two things I noticed like off the bat. One, that it was very, very desi, like very, very desi, and then two, I guess there were specific decisions that you guys had made as far as the open mic that were interesting.
Yeah.
At least for me, like, and I wasn't like I just wasn't expecting them. Not necessarily they were bad. I just wasn't really expecting them. So I said, I guess one of the first things I noticed was in the open mic, because because of the majority of people there were Desi. And again, this is just something that happens. This is not like I'm not blaming anyone, but just if you're not conscious of this, it's just what happens. And so something that I felt, and maybe I could be wrong, but this is just what I experienced, is that every other kind of like culture that tried to express themselves wasn't given the same, like, I guess, hype as the other performers who might have been doing something in Urdu, or they were just Desi themselves. And like the energy, like honestly, I was talking to Matthew, I was like, I felt like I was in Idara. Like there were so many nadas, like nada.
Bro, they were making up different nada heydaris. I didn't know multiple nada heydaris existed, bro. At first I was like jumping in because I was like, yo, okay, I'm used to being the white boy at Pakistani events, whatever, right? Y'all can think I'm a convert, whatever. But then I was like joining a nada heydari, and they had this new like nada heydari version 4.5 out here. I was like, which nada is this?
Anyways, I bring that up to say, like, was there any thought given to, I guess, maybe making it, I don't want to make it seem like it was like exclusive, because I don't think it was exclusive, but it was very, I guess, Desi centric, maybe. So was there any, has there been any thought, was there any thought originally, and then like moving forward from that time? I don't know, like the amount of feedback you received about that, but is that something that you guys are like considering?
You guys are being so kind about it, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, the first year there was obviously thought put into it, but we didn't go about it in the way that we should have. Especially that open mic. I think in the beginning when we sat down to do it, we were like, okay, like do we limit it to English only, or do we just open it up? We were like, no, like let's do all languages because we want to be inclusive. And then all languages ended up just being like Urdu and English. So like that was definitely a lesson learned. And then another reflection that came out of that first conference was that if you have 5 executive members who are Desi planning the conference, like there's only so much outreach you can do that's going to pull in the non-Desi community, you know? So that was a mistake on our part. And that's something I've been reflecting a lot on in general too. You know, like when we talk about diversity, you can't just have diversity without having it in the leadership positions. So that was a lesson learned. Like I can't go back and be like, wow, like can't change that conference.
Yeah.
But definitely we came out of that conference and we were like, no, like we can't keep going like this. So the second year, at least for the open mic, what we did was that we were like, we'll do all English, and then to have that inclusive component of other languages, we will allow like one language each of whatever language it is, you know. And then for that, I believe we had all English, and like one thing in Urdu, and that was translated. So that was our solution to that. For the second year around. As well as like having ambassadors and like bringing on more people for outreach specifically. We're going into this third year, still trying to, you know, have these measures in place, and trying to do that targeted outreach still. But still very conscious of the fact that because I wish we could go back in time. I'm still conscious of the fact that like after that first conference, because I feel like once you get established as that, it's really, really hard to pull yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Especially when your like audience became Desi, you know, like majority Desi audience.
Yeah,
and now
like,
it's like there's just so many Desi people, and we're like, how do we go about this? Like if we have 250 tickets. So these are conversations we're having within the executive team. Like, do we do a staggered release of tickets? Do we do like specific communities? Like, how do we go about this? Because we know like the day those tickets go out, like there's just so many Desi Shias.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to be clear, like, even like with that, it was still an amazing conference.
Yeah.
I definitely, I think it was an amazing conference. I guess maybe something to consider is that it might not even be like, it might just be that you just always have a Desi majority. Like it might be that way.
Yeah.
But I think what's more important than whether whoever is the majority or whatever, it's whether I guess cultural experiences can be like shared. And some of the time, at least at the first Marifa, I didn't feel that it was being shared. I felt like it was very much like these people here and me here, you know.
Yeah. And it's not, and obviously it's not like entirely like a reflection upon you, because I think that's just like, it was like a very animalistic culture's like a very animalistic thing, like in terms of like how things just end up naturally flowing.
Yeah.
Like I don't think people got there and was like, hey yo, we're all gonna be super duper Desi to make anyone who's not Desi feel uncomfortable. But I guess what happened was like many of the people there know each other.
Yeah.
Like so like a large group of people already know each other, excited. And then like I think what I was watching was like a lot of people who were Desi Shias, and those two identities, like Iranians do the exact same thing, where like they conflate being Shia and their race with each other, and then because they maybe at their own university they don't have any other Desi Shias to relate to, they just got really excited at Marifa. They're like, hey yo, like you know, like they were giving each other lots of love, like during those performances and whatnot. And like it wasn't intentional, but it was like, oh, my boy's going up there to do some stand-up, or he's gonna sing a song, I'm going to give him some love. And then like I think like one Iranian guy came up to sing, and I mean people were trying to give him some love, but it was like it was different because he wasn't getting all the different versions of nadas and all that, you know. So.
No, there's so many versions. You guys are actually being so kind, and it's so helpful. I think I love the way that you're framing it too, Hussein, because I think at some point we do have to just make peace with the fact that maybe that is our audience.
Yeah.
But we still owe it to everyone else to be as inclusive as possible. Like anyone who is coming to the conference should feel like they're a part of the conference.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, I mean, honestly, like Hussein's saying, it being majority Desi is something that you can't control necessarily. And it might even be a good thing, because maybe if you can just take that same space and like over time just make it more open to other people expressing themselves, that can actually be a really, really great opportunity for Muslim unity. You know, like if you just had that same space and like not even like force people to be like, hey, be less Desi, but maybe even like there's something like, okay, I'll say this, at the masjid I frequent now, my first time there, like as an adult man, I've been there like as a kid before, but like it was like years ago.
Yeah.
So like I think maybe like a year ago or 2 years ago, first time I came there like as an adult, and everyone was Desi, and I came in and no one really like looked at me, made eye contact at first. No one said salam to me. So I just sat in the corner, and some really like a older elderly Desi guy walked up to me. He was like, "Hey, sound like him, Beta." And he called me Beta, and I was like,
Oh.
"Huh?" And he was like, "How are you? Never seen you before. Yo, give me your number on my phone right now. I need your help with something." I was like, "Okay." And then like later did I find out that was actually the resident alim's father. And he just helped me feel so welcome. But like I feel like the way he even said like called me Beta, like that was super cool, because he didn't like he didn't compromise his culture. He like
included you in it.
Included me in it. Like he grabbed me and pulled me into it. I don't know how that's done though, but I'm just saying it was really cool, because it is fun to say the nada. It's like, I won't lie. Like
no, we'll figure it out together, inshallah. It will happen.
Inshallah. I want to ask, so the future of Marifa, what is that looking like?
Okay.
sorry. Let's make smaller chunk questions. Sorry, was that too much?
No, that was a perfect question.
You sighed like, so figuring that out.
So we can talk about like the near future, as in, like what's happening in 2022, and we can also talk about a bit further
let's
too.
do 2022. Let's start there, and then we can move out.
Yeah, like let's talk about this upcoming session.
Amazing. So we have a conference coming up. It will be in DC at the end of March. Usually, like we're at the end of the February conference, but COVID times, so changing it up a bit, like in case, like the weather gets warm in March, a bit warmer at least, and we're just praying with COVID right now. But yeah, happening in DC, focused on the heart and revival. We felt like it was the next thing to do. It was like a good transition from the first two conference themes into this to, kind of like turn inwards now. So that's happening. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar, but we do have another program that we launched right after the first conference. It's called Seekers and Scholars. And so we work with Shia high school students, especially like the senior high school students, but also like other grade levels too, as they're applying to colleges. So we pair them up with Shia college students. And this kind of came from, so like it's open to everyone. There's a fee for folks who are able to pay, but this really came from wanting to make that space for low income and first generation Shia students who are in high school and who want to go to college but don't really have anyone to turn to review their applications or someone to answer their questions and things like that. And I feel like that's another thing you guys might notice, right? Like when we just focus on identity in our communities, we forget about these other identities. Like we really forget about the fact that there's like low-income Shias, there's undocumented Shias, there's like Black Shia Muslims, there's like all of these other marginalized identities that do exist in the US. And what do you do about those folks, So that's also like Seekers and Scholars really came from that. Like we just wanted to look out for that community as well. And for me, like having been like a low income first gen student, it was just so important to make sure that we had that included in our programs. So that's those are the two things we're doing. Like we obviously want to continue doing them. As for like more of a sustainability plan, like none of us, the original team, we're not students anymore.
Yeah.
And I think a unique thing about Marifa was that it's like run by young people for young people. And so we brought on a team of 8 people this year. Like we just had the interview processes, they're coming in. So part of, like imagination right now is also training these people to run programs. As you all have noticed, like our masjids are run sometimes by scholars who don't have any community training, or by like uncle doctors who also don't have any community training. So this is also part of it is like there's like multiple things happening at Marifa. So one thing is also you're working with these first years who just came on and hopefully will stay on for the 4 years to train them how to do community work. So that's kind of another long-term thing of like these people just sticking here. The rest of it we're figuring out. Like eventually I would love to introduce more programs to it. There's so many ideas that the team has. And as you all know, there's like so many different kinds of people on the team with different expertise. So inshallah, like we do want to keep expanding. We want to make sure that there's sustainability in this. And we also just want to make sure that it's always community centric.
MashaAllah. I wanted to go just back for 1 second because I think you made a really good point, and I feel like it's something that can be explored a little bit. You mentioned like Muslims focusing just on identity and like the problems with that. Can you maybe just explain like if I'm I'm playing devil's advocate, like what's the issue? Like I'm talking to you, I'm like, hey Layla, like why shouldn't we focus on Muslim identity? Doesn't our identity matter so much? Like why shouldn't we focus on this identity? Like what do you have to say about that?
So I'll just take this Shia Muslim identity piece, right, of this, and so in my experience, I really want to make sure that I'm using I statements in this completely. So correct me if I lose that. But very much like in my own personal experience, like when you're coming from like countries like Pakistan, or say like Bahrain, or some of these other countries where like Shia Muslims specifically are marginalized, and maybe your family has gone through it, and that's that's the background you have, and then you are living in a country, or you grew up in a country such as the US, and that's still the background you have. I just feel like it's I feel like it's a waste of our energy to focus on like the marginalization of Shias in the US specifically. Because like what is the worst that can happen to you? Maybe like you were excluded from your MSA event, or maybe like a Sunni community in the US does like a huge event and you're not a part of it.
Yeah.
We're just not asking ourselves questions of like, do we want to be a part of it? Like we're just sitting here being like, wow, like I wasn't included in it. And I feel like as like Shia Muslims living in the US, identity, like the Shia identity part of it is maybe like a bottom tier like thing to worry about, if that makes sense.
I love what you're saying. Continue.
Right, like it's just not. It's like I don't want to be controversial here, but like we're not like
let it fly.
Like maybe like maybe we're excluded. I just don't think we're marginalized.
Oh my God.
In the US.
Oh my, so many people are gonna be so upset. Like what? Because some Shias, all they can talk about is Shias being marginalized. I'm sorry.
And they are in other countries, but that's just not your experience as a Shia Muslim in the US.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're going to talk about identity, let's talk about the fact that there's so many like Muslims in your own masjid that are on food stamps, right? Like what are you doing to make sure that they have enough food at home, or folks that are just like like going through like domestic abuse and things. I just feel like there's so many other things to focus on that like and like some of it is also like bitterness and biases and projections, but it's like there's a lot of like, you all know, like this community has a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting here and like you're a rich Shia and you're still talking about your marginalized identity, I want you to do something with it. Like I'm begging you, to do something else with it.
Yeah.
So that's why like I think that's where like Marifa became so important, because even in our MSA spaces or ABSA spaces or like in young Shia spaces, the question is always just like we're marginalized, but like, okay, let's move on. Like, let's move to like, yes, like we have established that, but what can we do now? Like, how do you, like, have we asked ourselves what it means to be a Shia Muslim? Like, what does it really mean to be a Shia Muslim?
Yeah, outside of just like identifying as one.
Exactly. And I feel like if we just like, like I think we can spend years answering that question and that would be enough. But I hope that answers it, Mahdi.
No, like mashallah, thank you for that. I think what you're saying is so important, and that's why like I was like I saw that, but like I just really wanted you to expand upon it, because I think if we didn't, some people would have just been like, yeah, like maybe they wouldn't have gotten the point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something that's it's such a scary undertone if you think about it, because if we just only focus on like I understand representation is good, like we all understand like the noticeable real life impact it has if you see like yourself being represented like in media and films and whatever, like but I feel like Muslims, I think in general, like sometimes we just want to be oppressed, and I think it's really upsetting because there are people who are actually oppressed, and as Muslims we should just be like just focusing on feeling more comfortable is such a waste of our resources. As you said, like there's literally a million other things we could do, like making sure everyone in the community is like eating food, like if we're focusing on like feeling more secure and like feeling more Shia, but our Muslim brothers and sisters are not having dinner because they can afford it. That's man.
But we're going on Twitter and being like, I love Imam Ali.
Some people hate me because I love Ali. Like
no, definitely. And I think that's always kind of been my issue with like the outcry, or maybe in like the past couple of years, outcry from like several different Shia communities of like Islamophobia. Because to me, it's always been like, okay, I guess you had some kind of incident where it was like made clear to you that you're outside the fold of like American whiteness, and now you care about being like marginalized, whereas before that's all you were trying to attain, you know?
Right? Like I don't know. I don't know. We're just asking ourselves, like, do we want to be a part of this?
Exactly.
Should we be a part of it?
Should we be a part of it? Do we want to be a part of it? Like we said, like in one of the other community events we had, like, do we need Muslim representation at the Met Gala? Like, is that a place where we want that? You know, do we want Shia representation at the Met Gala? Probably not.
It's all a little bit backwards. And I mean, like talking about like Twitter again, like I just think people get such a rile out of like it gives them something to really focus on, like I forget the word of it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the same. What are those they do? What's like the name of those Shia people who like Shia is like an aesthetic? No, like yeah. You see the guys like he got the Zulfikar necklace, he got the Zulfikar earrings, he got like the forearm tattoos that just say Ali Wali Allah on both arms. Like, you know, it's like you do it a lot. But it's like it's not like but it's not that it's bad to like show your love so openly, but it's just something's missing if it's like you're doing that but you're seen at the club. That's the issue we run into. But and also like I guess to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I think that's why it's really good that Marifa focuses on the content, because if it doesn't focus on the content, it can easily just attract only those kinds of people who go to a space to feel only a certain way. And it's not that like sometimes we all just need to feel a certain way. Like sometimes you just need to be comfortable and have that energy. But that content is important. Mashallah, just keep that up.
No, thank you. And we do want to be kind in this approach too, right? Like who knows? Like maybe Amalang is actually also just so practicing, right? You just never know. So that's also like a thing we're like focused on in Marifa too, you know, like maybe we have perceptions of people in a certain way, but who knows? Like maybe they're just like they're like a lot more pious than whatever their social media projects it to be. So I think we're also just trying to unlearn that too, to be like kindness and mercy and all of this matters, and also like kindness and mercy to ourselves matter too, like to be that for ourselves.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask for those right now who are listening, who've been tuned in and they're like, wow, Laila sounds awesome, this Marifa sounds awesome, let people know right now, like what can someone do to learn more about Marifa?
Amazing. Okay, so you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere. It's Marifa Programs. So it's Marifa and then just programs. That's our handle everywhere. And that's also the website, marifaprograms.com. You can reach out to me directly if you have any questions, Laila at marifaprograms.com, or just like info at marifaprograms. But that's the important bit to remember. Yeah, you can like tune in to all of that. On the website, you can sign up for the mailing list. That's where we will release all the information for the upcoming conference. We're just so excited for it.
And if you guys don't support it, you're not supporting Thoughtful Banter. So go make sure to support that right now. Yeah. Go give them some love, mashallah. And we wanted to ask also just you talked about like the future of Marifa. I'm just curious about you. Like, are you going to, because you are, I guess the plan is handing off leadership to the youth to make sure that Marifa stays something that's ran by people who it's relevant for. You yourself personally, are you going to do any other big Shia like events? Like what's cooking in the mastermind?
Oh man, I actually don't know. I think that's a tougher question to answer than the Marifa one. Okay. I am very much still trying to figure it out. Like the only thing I know is that I want to stay in this space. I just want to be intentional about it. So we're figuring that out now.
All good. Well, Laila, thank you so much for joining the Thoughtful Banter podcast. You have been our first guest of 2022. That's right.
No, thank you so much for having us. And Marifa and the entire team was so excited for it. So alhamdulillah, thank you.
Of course. Is there anything at all you want to shout out or plug? And not like we have like a lot of support, but
no.
Maybe the future. Anything you want to plug or anything?
Don't discredit yourself. No, just Marifa.
Okay.
We're just here for that today.
Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, make sure to go support Marifa. If it at all makes you if you're just at all curious, go check it out. It'll be the first link in the description box down below, whether you're listening to this on Spotify, whether you're listening to this on YouTube. Make sure just to go check it out. Make sure to support the Thoughtful Banter podcast. This is the first guest episode. It has been a pleasure speaking with Laila Tauqeer. Thank you so much, Laila. And we are out.